First and foremost, you know, I'm a songwriter, and therefore I'm interested in writing accompaniments for my own songs and for other people's songs. You know, that's the main thing I do, really. The idea of playing lead when I first came to the group was I never played lead. I mean, I wasn't really interested in that originally. But then, obviously, once you get the keyboards and you hear sounds, and you start to have played melodies rather than sung melodies. And I always look upon my, you know, whatever kind of solos, call them what you will, more like kind of little sort of instrumentals, if you like. I tend to sort of write them as carefully as I'd write a vocal tune, and that's the melody. And most of the time, you wouldn't improvise much from them.
Look at different ways of improvising. In the last series of Rock School, we talked about the pentatonic blues scale, one of the most versatile solo voices. It sounds like this. However, if you only play these notes, you might sometimes find it a little bit restricting. For example, on this chord sequence, it's C to G to A minor. You could try playing A natural minor, which is the scale of C major starting on A. If you take any major scale and start on its sixth note, you'll get the relative minor. This idea of playing a major scale starting from a note other than its root note is the key to fresh and inventive ideas for soloing. This uses systems of notes called modes. Now, that relative or natural minor that I just played was also a mode. A mode is a displaced scale. If you take, for example, C major scale and played it 7 times over, starting each time on a different note, you would get 7 modes.
The sound of each mode is different because each has a unique pattern of tones and semitones. Once you've worked out this pattern, you can play them in any key. Now, the names of modes derive from ancient Greek scales, and you can find out more about them in a good book. But for the moment, we're just going to look at 2 of the modes most commonly used in rock, which are the Dorian and Mixolydian. Now, the Dorian mode is simply like playing a major scale, but starting on the second step. If your major scale was C, your starting note would be a D, and it would sound like this. Now, to find out how to use this mode effectively for your solos, you have to know which chord it will fit with. So what you do is take the root, 3rd, 5th, and 7th, and what you get are the notes of D minor 7th. So, a Dorian mode will sound good against a minor 7th chord, like this. The other mode which is used most commonly in rock is the Mixolydian mode, and that's like playing a major scale starting on the 5th step to the octave above. If your major scale was C, your starting note would be a G, and it would sound like this. Now try taking the 1st, 3rd, 5th, and 7th. The notes you end up with are a G dominant 7th chord. Therefore, a Mixolydian mode will sound good against a dominant 7th chord. In the next piece of music, I'm going to solo over the chords of a minor 7th changing to a dominant 7th, using the Dorian and then the Mixolydian mode where appropriate.
Now, to round off this programme on soloing, let's look at a technique that allows you to express yourself at great speed. That is using both hands on the fingerboard, as popularised by guitarist Eddie Van Halen. Now, this technique involves using the pick hand to hammer on and pull off, and this is how you do it. Fret a note as usual, and then using the pick hand, hammer on by bringing your finger down firmly on the fingerboard like this. You pull off by bringing the finger away sideways. Now, this is a really good technique to use to build up arpeggios. So, for example, try out A minor. A major. Now, if you pull off to an open string like this, you can bring your pick hand over to change the lower note. Now, using a combination of left and right hand hammer-ons and pull-offs, you can actually create a rippling note effect like this.
And of course, you can use all these techniques on the bass guitar as well. One of the leading exponents of this style is a guy called Billy Sheehan, who plays with the David Lee Roth Band. We couldn't get a film clip of him, so we'll have to do it. So, until next week, rock out.